So good to see you. It feels like it's been a long time.
It has been a long time. It has been a long time. And I've been thinking that the overwhelming feeling I have during our meetings is relief. Yeah, like there's been so much effort going on, and this is a time when we can just set it aside.
Yeah,
So,
like phew, home again. Phew. It's like phew. Oh, that never happened. Thank God. Oh, just having a bad dream.
are you good?
I'm very good.
Good,
Super good.
good, excellent,
So
excellent.
Neem Karoli Baba is here, and he's telling me that we're on chapter 40. Is that right?
He's right.
He's right. So I don't know where Neem Karoli Baba fits in, but he fits in as a bookmark at least.
He
He's
was
blind. So.
he was Baba Ramdas's teacher, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet him once in Chicago, and after his lecture, people hung around a little bit, and we had a nice hug right after.
Oh,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
yeah. A blessing.
Yeah,
So chapter 40 is called Nidaga's declaration of his being Brahman, the seer, with nothing to see, and no obeisance to be offered to a guru.
and we're very much celebrating his experience in this chapter. And I read it a couple of times in the last few days, and what's really, really powerful is that his certainty is undeniable.
Hmm.
He's certainly, certainly certain. There's no doubts whatsoever.
You're a
Shall
very
I,
good
or would you like
student.
to? Hmm?
You're a very good student. Much better than me. Can I start to read?
Please.
Oh, I just feel like doing okay. As the recipient, as the beneficiary of the ineffable, undivided, supreme bliss, Sage Nadaga continued. That's like our words. I felt like that was our words also, isn't it?
Yeah,
Anyone who's been
right.
listening to this, it must be their words.
Well, we're like the narrator here in these couple of lines,
Mm.
and then the narrator appears again at the end of the chapter.
Master, by your steadfast compassion, for me who have become of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, submerged in an ocean of bliss, rid of all the bondage and sorrow of worldly existence. There is no perception of duality, such as the Lord, world, and the individual, in the least. Oh, oh, oh. I do not perceive the body that appears as gross. I do not perceive the body that appears as subtle. I do not perceive the body that appears as causal. I do not perceive the deluded mind and such. I do not perceive time or space and such. I do not perceive a trace of anything illusory. I have become the supreme Brahman of the nature of the supremely quiescent, changeless, complete existence.
There you go then.
I do not perceive the sentient or the insentient or others. I do not perceive the existent or the non-existent or the others. I do not perceive the pot or the cloth or other objects. I do not perceive cause and effect or others. I do not perceive the body or other conditionings. I do not perceive any individual or the supreme that becomes conditioned. I have become the eternal supreme Brahman of the nature of untrammeled joy, shining consciousness, revered one. That's a great word, isn't it? Untrammeled joy.
Untrammeled.
I don't really know what it means, but it probably doesn't, it might not even mean this, but to my mind, like it's like it hasn't been trampled on. Like maybe because of trammel sounds like trampled, but it probably means something like that. It's
Yeah,
like the
seems to
joy is,
fit.
yeah, it's like untainted, like another word for untainted.
And
Untrammeled.
what do you take I do not perceive to mean? Is it the mind isn't making distinctions? The mind is completely quiet. It's not even there. It's gone.
Well, what comes here is like it's like it doesn't matter if it's there or not. It's just like that voice is coming from that there, like from that true part of us that doesn't perceive anything but itself. So not nothing. Like, so you could say like the mind might be there or not, but it's not speaking from there. You know,
Mm,
because even if you're saying like I see this and all, it's not really like it's consciousness that sees that. So it's speaking from, in a way, even beyond consciousness. Although you can't speak from beyond consciousness because the words are apparent in consciousness, in a way. So, like, you know, nothing actually makes sense logically when you're speaking about things. But when I'm reading it, that's what I feel like. But that's also because I feel like that because I am not in that state, like, you know, like, so I do perceive the world. I do perceive the world, but I also recognize that it's not real. Like you can speak from different places, you know. So when I hear that, it's like, yeah, it's just it's an expression from silence.
mm,
But you could also say I perceive the world, and that's still an expression from silence.
mm.
But that's how it's understood here. How about you? What do you feel?
Well, I imagine Nadaga having sat with Ribhu, and Ribhu's just been showering him with his grace,
Yeah.
over and over and over and over again,
Mm,
and he's just vibrating in it.
yeah.
Mm. He says a lot about his direct experience here.
Mm,
Um, so some of the lines are that we're coming to are just earth shattering.
mm. I do not perceive the forms of Brahma. Yeah, and also it's just like that, like you say, like the mind is not making any distinctions at all. Like I read some words, I can't remember now, but words from Ananta today, and he was speaking about kind of the difference between the heart, you know, like the knowing of the heart and the conceptual understanding of the mind. And somehow the heart always knows. You know, the heart is never in a this is just my addition of my way of understanding it is like the heart always knows, it's never out of knowing. The heart inherently knows itself. So it's more that when we're like this what Ananta was saying, like when we're open and empty, you know, so open and empty of ideas and distinctions, let's say, then we kind of have a conceptual understanding of what it is to be the self. And it's not just conceptual because of course we can feel it in our heart as well. But then what came here was it's almost like the mind and the heart come together. Like the mind and the heart
Mm,
are in harmony. They're not separate. They've never really been separate anyway. But also experientially they're not separate.
mm.
Um yeah, I don't know why I said all
Beautiful.
that. I do not perceive the forms of Brahma. Yeah, that's why I said it because it's like you're not really your mind is not the mind might be there or not, but it's not even called the mind when because it's almost like in a way when it's in harmony with the heart it is the heart.
Mm,
Yeah, it's kind of still there because if you're seeing a world it's there. So even to speak words, there is a mind there because otherwise you wouldn't be speaking or anything. At least that's my understanding of it. That's correct. Someone will argue with me, of course.
no, it's not that. I never want this chapter to end.
I know what we're gonna do when we get to the end of the book. Oh my God, getting there. I think about
I
that
already
one.
have a I already have a plan.
Okay, back to page
It's
one.
a it's a
Okay, don't
secret.
tell
Yeah.
me. I do not perceive the forms of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and others. I do not perceive the pentad of actions performed by them. I do not perceive the gods or demons, men or beasts. I do not perceive the sun or moon or other luminaries. I do not perceive a trace of the presence of the here or hereafter. I do not perceive the differentiation as individuals and worlds. I have become the supreme Brahman, the exalted reality, formless as the space. I do not perceive any duality or non-duality. I do not perceive any joy or sorrow, any praise or blame. I do not perceive any differences of multiple religions. I do not perceive anything that stands apart. I do not perceive any guru conferring auspiciousness or any disciple. I do not perceive any words of instruction. Becoming the blemishless, undivided, supreme consciousness, I have become the changeless, supreme Brahman, revered one. I feel it's kind of like that, our mind tries to understand and we kind of pretend or like imagine that it means he's in some other state than we are. But the whole point of these teachings is to point out that we're all in that state already. Like that's what's here already. It's not, nothing changes, nothing becomes different. So I feel like as well, when you're reading these words, it's very obvious that it's our reality as well. Like, so even like I do not perceive any duality or non-duality. Like we can feel that in ourselves. And it is really our direct experience once we're not um engaging with the mind or asking the mind to confirm it. Because once you're asking the mind to confirm it, the mind will say, oh no, but this, but this. But like really the most fundamental experience is this. So it's just, so even the question of is the mind there or not is totally a mind thing. It's like,
No, true.
so it's
How
like,
true.
mm.
Yeah, and it's great to be reminded that I sort of brought that to the table this week. And it's sort of permission to just kind of let it go, which again goes back to the relief.
Yeah. And that's what the mind does. It just keeps coming up with things. Like, but our we have, let's say we have a mind and we have a heart. So the mind questions and the heart answers.
Hmm.
It's like, and they go together as well. So it's not even wrong, for the mind to bring things or say things. It's just like it's what happens. It's like it's the natural thing that happens within consciousness. It's like beautiful thing.
Hmm.
Mhm. I do not perceive any trace of the fickle ignorance. I do not perceive any of the doubts and discords. I do not perceive the states of listening and such. I do not perceive the states of one-pointed concentration and such. I do not perceive any fear of defective duality. I do not perceive any of the insurmountable bondage of worldly existence. I have become the non-dual supreme Brahman, the motionless, undivided, supreme consciousness, revered one. Would you like to read a little?
Yeah, I just want to say how fortunate I feel. Just
Mhm.
so lucky.
Yeah, same here. There. Mm.
I do not perceive modifications like birth and others. I do not perceive the body and such that undergo modification. I do not perceive different states, such as wakefulness and such. I do not perceive the qualities that are assigned name and such. I do not perceive dream or the high, the low, and others. I do not perceive any of the illusory pairs of opposites. I have become the non-dual Supreme Brahman, the mass of eternal bliss, revered one. I do not perceive any of the beings or the world. I do not perceive any of the senses or the organs. I do not perceive any of the Vedas or scriptures. I do not perceive any of the injunctions or prohibitions. I do not perceive any of the castes, law, or lineage. I do not perceive or achievements. I have become the non.
You became frozen for a second. I heard I have become the non.
Oh, then you must know that I have become the non-dual, undivided Supreme Brahman, undivided, originless, and endless, revered one.
It's like a
I do
joke,
not
isn't it?
perceive.
It's like a joke. Like I have become the non. Like and then not even any words. Like it's just like nothing. Like it's like life. Like these little jokes.
How perfect is that, eh?
And
I do not perceive anything of duality as not being Brahman. I see everything as the Supreme Brahman. I do not perceive anything as apart from Brahman. I see everything as the Supreme Brahman. I do not perceive anything differentiated as all. I see all as the Supreme Brahman. Best of gurus, I indeed have become the Supreme Brahman. How great is your undiminishing grace! I am indeed Brahman, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. I am indeed Brahman, the changeless, the peaceful. I am indeed Brahman, the void, which is that knowledge. I am indeed Brahman, which stands as that. I am indeed Brahman, which stands motionless like a rock. I am indeed Brahman, the taintless and undivided. By such constant practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. There's the whole scripture in a nutshell.
mm,
I am indeed Brahman, the unattached of the fourth state. I am indeed Brahman, the spotless and pure. I am indeed Brahman, the endless and eternal. I am indeed Brahman, the perfectly pure. I am indeed Brahman, the bondageless and liberated. I am indeed Brahman, the differenceless knowledge. By such practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. The, the, um, the words are just echoing on this side.
Mm.
It's so, it's really beautiful.
Oh, I love it without a second. Like, that's the whole point of it, without a second. Like as soon as there's like, even if you take yourself to be, if you take yourself to be an individual I, which is basically anything that's appearing inside, then once there's an I, there's like an other
Mm,
as well. So even an I is a second in a way. Like it is because there's like, you could say there's a God and a me. You could say there's a God and a me, so that's a second. But like you recognize that actually you're the God or the self. I don't know. Just like the way it said it without a second.
and there's just so much relief there. It's not adding something in some new
Mm,
knowledge. It's like simply
yeah.
stopping.
Yeah, and it's not even telling us something that we don't know because like everybody knows this. Sometimes we think we don't know, but because I remember, I think I told you before, I remember like years ago, people saying things like this to me, "You're enlightened already. You're enlightened," and I was just like, "Yeah, okay," but like, like it doesn't mean anything if you don't know it. Like you have to kind of recognize it yourself or like acknowledge something in yourself. You know, so I don't know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say something. I can't remember.
So, Ganga Mira lives in the Algarve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Hanuman was telling me he knows someone he can introduce me to there, but during lunch in the last few days, I've been
Mm,
watching a short video here and there, and the guidance is very much from her to just stop trying. It's a very consistent message.
yeah.
Can I read some more?
Please do.
Okay, this is verse 12. I, indeed, am the Supreme Brahman, the substratum of all. I, indeed, am the Supreme Brahman, which manifests as all. I, indeed, am the Supreme Brahman, which is completely free of any identity. I, indeed, am the non-dual Brahman, devoid of all. I, indeed, am the all-complete, perfectly full Brahman. I, indeed, am Brahman, which has no sextet of modifications. By such undiminishing practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. I indeed am Brahman, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss. I indeed am Brahman, the mass of eternal bliss. I indeed am Brahman, the eternal, the partless. I indeed am Brahman, which is veilless. I indeed am Brahman, which is non-dual. I indeed am Brahman, the undivided and perfectly full. By such practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the Supreme Brahman without a second. I indeed am Brahman without any illusions. I indeed am Brahman, which exists untainted. I indeed am Brahman, which is full of consciousness. I indeed am Brahman, which is the expanse of consciousness. I indeed am Brahman, which abides fearlessly. I indeed am Brahman, which is all pervasive. By such wonderful practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the undivided Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the attachmentless Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the defectless Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the indestructible Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the divisionless Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the indescribable Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the indivisible Supreme Brahman. By such blemishless practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the undivided Supreme Brahman. It's very tough to be desirous.
To be
Very
what?
tough to want to be desirous, to want something. This whole wanting is just
Desirous. It's hard to be desirous.
it's
Yeah,
it's hard to be right to want something. It's like
yeah.
it's this
Because yourself doesn't
wanting.
want anything. No, yourself doesn't want anything. Your idea of yourself might want something, or might think it wants something, but when you're just yourself, you can't want anything. What could you want? Because everything is you. You have everything. You have everything. You are everything. The idea of desire doesn't even exist.
It's I think there's a part sort of searching for rationality or explanation, and I think that's
Yeah.
very much it. That's very much it. So when you're practicing certitude in this way,
Mm.
it's very much slicing everything else aside. Eh?
Yeah.
What's your pleasure? Do you want to listen more? Do you want to read?
I can read. Are you on which verse? Are you on 16 or 17?
16.
I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the immemorial. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the complete. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the afflictionless. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the motionless. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the high and the low. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the sanctified. By such practiced certitude, day and night, revered one, I have become the fearless Supreme Brahman. Now his voice sounds just like Ribhu's voice. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the blemishless. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the attributeless. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the One. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the incomparable. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Great. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the undifferentiated. By such non-dual practiced certitude, revered one, I have become the peerless Supreme Brahman. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Eternal. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Untainted. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Pure. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Subtle. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the Sublime. I indeed am of the nature of the Supreme Brahman, awareness itself. By such doubtless practical certitude, revered one, I have become the imperishable Supreme Brahman. I have thus stated, demonstrated in this manner the great experience I have had by your grace, immense ocean of compassion. There is no way I can recompense you here. I offered you my body and my mind, but you have burnt them to ashes instantaneously. Sinless one, I offered you myself. You have made that also as your own self. I feel like that's so kind of poetic, but not poetic. Like it's poetically said, but very true. Like that. I offered you my body and my mind, but you have burnt them to ashes instantaneously. It's like it's the same as like you offer everything to like to God, you know. But like you in the offering, you recognize that they're nothing anyway. You know, like they you can say like that. He says like he burnt them to ashes, but it's like they dissolve in front of you like as something like it's not really. You see, it's just an idea. Like it's nothing. Like your body and mind has been nothing. So that's him burning them, isn't it? For him to show you that thing. Well, that's very beautifully said. How shall I now recompense you? All is your non-dual natural self. I am submerged in the ocean of I am Brahman, dissolved therein, where you are I and I am you in absolute identity. Is there anything apart in this state of the one self, abiding as itself all alone? Hence, there is nothing for me to give, and there is no way for you to take it and go anywhere else. What exists anywhere ever is only the expanse of consciousness, as, according to your teachings, there is nothing apart anywhere. There is no scope for you to instruct something and for me to learn it lovingly. What a wonder this is, revered one. It's like we kind of know it. When we hear it, we know it. And if there's a practice, you know, it's just like letting that sink in. It's like letting the truth, that truth, you know, that there is nothing apart anywhere. There's nothing apart anywhere, to let that sink in to every moment.
Do you read Curious George to your little boy?
I know of Curious George. I never came across it in a book. I think I saw it on a cartoon or something, but I haven't watched it really with him.
Ah, so there's a line about Curious George that, and he's a part of my childhood, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe every American kid, but
Okay.
there's a line about Curious George where it is said that he's a good little monkey, but it's easy for little monkeys to forget.
That sounds good.
So yeah,
Mm,
to your earlier point, it's this is a living reminder.
yeah. So it's almost like that's what keeps happening. Like we read something like this, or we look and question, and we're like, yeah, yeah, and we see, and then we're just living our life day to day, and it's like as if we forget. I think we don't really forget somehow. I don't know. Even the idea of forgetting seems kind of weird. Like it's almost like we're just pretending to forget. But like when we let that truth of that and the recognition of that truth, it's like we let that sink more and more into our heart. Then there's no need to remember. You know, the idea of remembering and forgetting just isn't really a thing
Beautiful.
anymore. Hence, there is nothing for me to give, and there is no way for you to take it and go anywhere else. What exists anywhere ever is only the expanse of consciousness. Read that already. I'm gonna read it again.
It's
As
perfect.
according to your teachings, there is nothing apart anywhere. There is no scope for you to instruct something and for me to learn it lovingly. What a wonder this is, revered one. Remember we used to say like that in satsang with Ananta, we used to say something like, or maybe I just said it, I don't know. But like that I want to like burn the teachings or something on my heart. You know, like imagine like a wood burning pen or something. You like burn it on like, so it's like there, like imprint into your heart. I guess it's just another way of saying that same thing, like to really let it soak into your heart. Even
Mm,
though at the beginning we said like our heart always knows,
mm.
but it's almost like, I don't know, it's like our heart mind or something. Our heart mind is a kind of a thing. It's not a thing. It's our experience, isn't it? Our heart mind kind of. It's like the heart is always completely untouched, and the mind is not really a real thing. But like when we're imagining, when we're in like the world of imagination and seeing things that aren't really there, aka the world, the universe. It's like that's like the mind. So when the mind, it's like that becomes the heart mind. The imagination is like the heart mind when you're in true recognition of yourself.
Mm.
I don't really know what I'm saying, but when I say it, it feels like the right thing. It's like, yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, okay. God.
Well, I don't know what you're saying either, but I really love hearing it.
It's like if you have to go into a logical debate about it, like I don't know, like like someone could, like someone could like pick out what you say and say, but what about this, what about that, and then if you just like, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't think it was true. I don't know. Let's just drop
Mm,
it.
mm, mm.
You, the sad guru, true guru, who give with grace, do not exist. I, the good disciple to receive it, do not exist. There is no threefold division of qualities. There is no primary nescience, nor is there Maya, delusion, illusion. There is no world arising as a bad dream. There are no consequent beings or Lord. Is it not only the nature of the attributeless Supreme Brahman that remains all pervasive? That's great, isn't it? Because it's, like in the experience, the experience of like coming to satsang and hearing words like this, and even like you said, when you come here, it's like relief. Relief. It's like you're like, in the heart again. But like all of that is not true. Like none, all of that is just part of the story. It's great, isn't it? Even that, even like when you say that, so I can say that, and even I can also feel like a sense of relief even when I say it. But even that, like the saying it and the feeling of relief and everything that goes with it, all of that, it's just like not real. And
Because
like
you had
that,
never left.
yeah, and this is like the highest thing, the true guru who gives with grace. Like anything that happens in our experience, you can kind of recognize, well, there's nothing I could have done to make that happen. Like you see, it's only grace that makes it happen.
Mm,
But like even that, so that's like here, that's like the highest thing I can imagine is like grace like that. But like even that, it doesn't exist. I to receive it and you to give it
mm.
doesn't exist because there's no I in you. And not even just because there's no I in you, but because the whole need for grace isn't there or isn't here. I'm just saying that to, I think I'm just saying that to like remind myself. Of course, because there's no one else.
When you recorded the first couple of chapters on video and put them out there, I remember on Facebook we were chatting. It was one of those rare times when we were chatting actually live, and I was being a little poetical, just acknowledging that you recorded the first couple of chapters, and I was saying they were beautiful, and I said,
Mhm.
"How great is your grace?"
Mhm.
And then you were answering, and I saw this dot dot dot, right? Because Facebook then shows you
Oh
that the
yeah.
person you're
Is
chatting with is writing something.
yeah. Yeah.
And I was hanging there in the space, kind of waiting and empty. And then I saw you had written, "Everything is grace."
Yeah. It's great, isn't it, that you can say like in one breath. Let's see if I can say it in one breath. Everything is grace and it doesn't exist. Everything is grace and that grace does not exist. Yeah, I'm grateful for grace. Simply.
Mm.
Because it's grace to even be able to say that.
Yeah.
To say that like that. It doesn't it's grace but it doesn't exist. And not just to say it but get a sense of it. You know. I can't even say I know it because it doesn't feel right to say, oh I know that. Somehow they don't go together. But like I sense the truth of it.
Mm.
We do know it. I feel like we really know it beyond that. You know, because English or maybe no language, it doesn't really touch. It can't really touch the true knowing of our heart. You know, like so even we put those words like knowing of the heart, but I guess what they point to is an experience, like the knowing of the heart, and we all have that or are that and experience that if we're open to it. So I suppose like I've experienced times in my life if somebody was saying even what I'm saying now, I would be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't experience that at all. I could have been saying like that. But it's just I think, yeah, like it's when you're trying to understand it with your mind and there's not as much openness. But like life cracks us open.
Water wears down the rock. Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I'm so glad that our sessions have lasted more than a year. I think
Yeah,
we're at about 18 months.
yeah.
It feels like that. I don't know exactly how long, but I relish the length of time it's taken us to get this
Yeah.
far.
Mhm.
Are we at time or shall we go on? What's good?
Now let's go on.
Okay.
To me, submerging myself in the peerless ocean of bliss that is the one supreme Brahman, and sporting therein to the heart's content, all thirst slaked, all fatigue relieved, becoming that itself, and established in the indivisible. There is not a thing to see it as a part. Satguru, true Guru, how generous is your grace, saving me from sorrow and bathing me in beatitude. Our favorite
I,
word.
I want to read that to you now.
Okay.
To me, submerging myself in the peerless ocean of bliss that is the one supreme Brahman, and sporting therein to the heart's content, all thirst slaked, all fatigue relieved, becoming that itself, and established in the indivisible. There's not a thing to see as a part. Sadguru, true Guru, how generous is your grace, saving me from sorrow and bathing me in beatitude.
Mhm.
Ah,
Right. Maybe we'll just read a verse or two more.
okay.
Should I bow to you today, it would be separating the two, and hence that bow should not be. Or if I bow to myself, it is fruitless, and hence that too should not be. Should I bow today to you, ever the one, conceiving duality, You will call me an ignoramus. Can there be duality in the immaculate state? Blemishless Sadhguru, should I now, in dichotomy, as you and I, bow to you with reverence, I shall be doing a distinct disservice to myself by introducing a delimitation. Is not the idea of difference the foundation for fear? Supreme Guru, hence on inquiry, I cannot see any courtesy or service I can offer. It's almost like it's just a play. Like it's like you can still bow and just like you're just kind of like enjoying the play of just loving yourself or something. Because somehow even when you know that in your heart, something still, what was coming to my mind was I remember being in Sahaja, and that's Monty Sahaja where Moody lives. And I remember one time he was just sitting on the wall and I was walking past, and like we kind of did like something like this to each other, like it just kind of happened like that. I don't know why the memory of that, because I mean there's probably loads of moments, but somehow that memory came. So it's kind of like you're just kind of pretending, because of course he knows everyone is himself, but yeah, there's still something that just does like this, isn't it?
Mm.
And there's joy in that. There's joy in honoring yourself, like when we meet and it's like this. It's like, I don't know what it is. Like you can't. There's no point like in bringing it to the mind, but it's kind of almost like a natural thing. Because, but you could not bow, like to bow or not bow, like maybe it doesn't make a difference. It's like sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes you have a cup of tea and sometimes you don't. It's not like one is better than the other. Even it's just like it just happens.
Mm.
Maybe there's different personalities as well, like I feel like in my personality I wouldn't like to feel like I could never or should never like bow again, because I think there's like great joy in that. Like for me there's a great love and joy in like just bowing to my guru,
Mm.
or even to like remember like to like have my feet at like Moody's feet or Ananta's feet. Like it just totally fills my heart up with love. Like it's like I don't need to take that away just because they're myself. I don't know. It's like it's good. I feel like it's good. It's like if life is for anything, it has to be for joy, right? So
There you go.
that brings joy.
Yeah.
So Neem Crowley Baba's gone back in the book. Yeah.
Okay. And Amba's smile is going right back into my heart where it lives.
That's sweet. Where it lives. So it's been very nice to say like reconnect, but we were never disconnected.
Right.
So
I still look forward to next time.
yeah. I think generally Saturday might be better for meeting for me.
For sure. For sure. It's totally fine.
Yeah, that's probably better for you as well, is it? Or
Next Saturday, my mom will be here and she needs this room.
okay.
The story is that she's coming in for a celebration for Sophia, our younger one.
Hmm.
She's finished college, so we're doing a little party for her.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I think probably the week after is gonna work.
And will your
Yeah,
mom
and
be there on Friday? Is it?
she will be here Friday. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll wait to meet
Yes.
till the next week.
Yeah. 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 And so glad to have an extra space for me to read this chapter a few more times in
And it's
preparation.
great. Look, your mom gets to stay in that room where like Ribhu has had his whole discourse.
That's right.
It's a pretty
That's
good place
right.
to stay.
I think so.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
I wish you a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, we're going to get a walk on West Seattle with some old friends on Sunday, so looking forward to that.
That sounds nice.
Yeah, I'll send you a couple of pictures maybe.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd like
Okay.
that. Yeah, I like to see
Okay,
different
well,
places.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty area where they live. I'll show
Mm.
you. We're going to take a walk by the ocean, and there's a few good scenes, so I'll capture them and share them across.
Mm.
Love you.
Bye. Love you too.